All That, a show that needs no introduction. In my opinion, it was the best show that had ever aired on the Saturday night lineup, SNICK. Created by Mike Tollin and Brian Robbins, the latter of which, who is the current president of Nickelodeon, were hired by Albie Hetch, a show developer and producer of Nickelodeon, who would later become the president during the late 90s and mid-2000s, to create new shows for the kids' network. Inspired by the likes of Saturday Night Live, Laugh-In, and You Can't Do That on Television, Mike and Brian created All That and hired cast members such as Kenan Thompson, Kel Mitchell, Angelique Bates, Alicia Reyes, Josh Server, Katrina Johnson, and Lori Beth Denberg. They will be doing various skits and performances that have now become iconic, such as Good Burger, Super Dude, Ear Boy, The Island Girls, and many more. At the end of every episode, the show would feature special performances from singers and bands performing the most popular songs at the time, highlighting a genre of music from hip-hop, R&B, alternative rock, and pop. While the show premiered in Nickelodeon on December 14th, the pilot premiered on April 16th to give viewers a taste of the brand new show. For us kids in the 90s, this was our Saturday Night Live. This was the true spiritual successor to You Can't Do That on Television. Sorry, Roundhouse, but there's a reason why All That reigned supreme after 25 years later. The cast members were diverse and memorable, the skits were varied and humorous, and the special performances brought a general audience to eclectic music that would ordinarily be generated towards a specific crowd. Today, we're going to look back on the pilot and compare it to the TV series to see what similarities and changes occurred. Now, for the sake of simplicity, we'll be comparing the pilot to the first 3 seasons of All That, as opposed to all 10 seasons. So with that said, let's see how well the pilot holds up on from pilot to final product. The pilot starts with a cold open with the cast members showing off their cool shoes one by one, with each of them having a gimmick that stands out from the previous pair of shoes shown.
They're the new air light-ups. They pop up and they have little lights in the back.
Oh, cool shoes.
I just got them. They're the brand new Toon Lightning. They got pops, lights in the back, and a pull-out stereo with CD player.
That's right, check them out. The all-new Turbo Ultra Pump Techno Sneaks. Hydraulic pumps, full 60-watt music sound system with remote, and a frozen yogurt dispenser.
Hey guys, check them out.
They're so big and heavy she can't even walk.
Who needs to? Later.
Now, to be fair, this was the 90s, so shoe commercials always showcase some gimmick that looks silly and unnecessary for today's audience, but it was so cool that we had to beg our parents for it. Thank goodness that we've toned down the gimmicks and become more honest about our shoes, right? Oh, I see. Well, anyway, some of you might be wondering about the setting. Instead of this familiar room that we've come to know, it's instead in a different location with a basketball court. That's because in the pilot and in the first 2 seasons, All That was filmed in Nickelodeon Studios in Orlando, Florida, where most of the shows such as Clarissa Explains It All, Nickelodeon Guts, Legends of the Hidden Temple, Figure It Out, and more were filmed at the time. It wasn't until the 3rd season onward that the show would be filmed at the Earl Carroll Theater, or Nickelodeon on Sunset as it's known today. With the cold open concluding, we now have our intro. While it's the same theme song sung by R&B group TLC, the scenes are way different. Instead of being outside where the cast members would be jumping around and playing handball, it's indoors where it seems like they got footage of the cast members in their dressing rooms trying out wigs, costumes, and using equipment. We even have TLC singing and dancing the theme song. According to a 2014 oral history article on MySpace, Rosanda Chili Thomas revealed that it was thanks to Brian Robbins who brought them to do the theme song because he was a fan of their work. In fact, it was Brian's idea to bring hip-hop and R&B performers to All That because those genres were being popular at the time, and it would fit to the urban flavor of the show. Our first skit begins with a group of kids going out camping, with the trip ending up in a disaster. However, one of the campers comes to the rescue with his pants full of everything they need and more. This is the premiere of Baggin' Saggin' Barry, who would appear twice in the first 2 seasons. While Baggin' Saggin' Barry is not a very well-known character for Kenan compared to the likes of Super Dude, Ishboo, or Pierre Escargot, he plays it very well. Speaking of Ishboo, one of the many celebrity cameos that appears at the end of every skit in this pilot is comedian/actor Sinbad, who would later on play as Ishboo's father around season 2, and as the teacher Mr. Wheat on the Good Burger movie. To go full circle, Kenan would portray as Sinbad a few times on SNL.
Know that my wife is a triceratops, right? Yeah, I wait downstairs while she tries on several tops.
The next skit has a group of people waiting in line to go inside a family entertainment store called Lucky Cheese, an obvious reference to every 80s and 90s kid's dreams of having their birthday parties, Chuck E. Cheese. But now they're known as the place where full-grown adults go for either reliving their childhoods or seeing if they can recreate a Five Nights at Freddy's experience. However, Lucky Cheese has a tough and brutal bodyguard played by Katrina Johnson. She would not let anyone inside the establishment. But then we have our special celebrity guest on the pilot, Phil Moore from Nick Arcade. Yeah, even Phil Moore isn't welcome at Lucky Cheese. Oh well, at least he has Figure It Out to fall back on.
Oh yeah, welcome to You're On, the show where kids with the deal are keeping it real.
No, we don't talk about that. After that skit, we have a quick 32-second skit of Angelique Bates and Kel Mitchell having an Urkel versus Urkel competition. Quick skits like this wouldn't happen very often in the series. Instead, they would have skits ranging from 3 to 5 minutes long. Other skits that would be very rare in the series are quick skits that would carry on throughout the episode. Here we have a skit of Katrina Johnson playing as Annie singing Tomorrow while unfortunate things happen to her. This would happen 2 more times over with different things happening to her. After that, the next skit would be featuring one of Lori Beth Denberg's most well-known characters, the teacher Miss Fingerly. Each student is breaking a rule from chewing gum to listening to music to eating pudding. When Miss Fingerly asked the cliched teacher question of if the students brought enough for the class, they would respond with a yes. Miss Fingerly is a tad bit more serious in the pilot compared to her appearance in the series, where she would start things off with a bad joke every time that she would enter class. The next skit would be an homage to classic 50s B-horror movies, with a family being affected by a blobbish creature called Glorp that was found by leftovers in the fridge. We have the first of many cameos from writer and executive producer Dan Schneider. Believe it or not, Dan Schneider began his career as a writer/producer on All That, since before he was an actor on television. Schneider and Robbins were in a TV show together called Head of the Class. Robbins asked Schneider to become a writer of the show, and the rest was history, with him being pretty much the king of live-action shows during the late 90s and 2000s, with The Amanda Show, Drake and Josh, Zoe 101, iCarly, Victorious, Sam and Cat, Henry Danger, and Game Shakers. The next skit would be very well known for All That, and it would be one of Josh Server's most iconic characters in the series, Earboy. It starts off just like every introduction of Earboy, with a bunch of students making fun of him because of his big ears. So he then turns to his friend H. Ross Perot, played by Katrina Johnson, for help. For those who don't know, Henry Ross Perot was a billionaire businessman who ran for president as an independent in 1992 and started the Reform Party in 1996. He would advocate things such as balancing the federal budget, ending outsourced jobs, and enacting electronic direct democracy with his simple and easy to understand charts. While he didn't win the elections, he had won 18.9% of the popular votes in 92 and 8% of the popular votes in 96, showing that there were people who were tired of voting for presidents who were either Republican or Democratic. After that, he would never run for president ever again, and he would switch over to the Republican Party around 2000. So knowing that context, Katrina does a pretty spot-on job as Ross Perot, since he would appear in every Earboys skit with helping Walter making friends at school, brag about his $4 billion, and using his charts to point out the situation. However, in the pilot's case, it sort of leaves on a cliffhanger note, with Earboy signing up at a new school and making new friends such as Pizza Face, Four Eyes, and Tinsel Teeth, or the choice of Earboy flushing his head down the toilet. The next skit is the dynamic duo Mavis and Clavis, played by Keenan and Kel, who would introduce the guest performers TLC singing the song What About Your Friends? Ordinarily in all that, after the singers finished their performances, they would end the show with the cast coming out and saying goodbye while the credits play. However, there's one more skit that comes afterwards. It's another one-time skit that was exclusive to the pilot, similar to Lucky Cheese, called All That Raps, which is a reference to Yo MTV Raps, where the host, played by Alicia Reyes, would interview a hip-hop frog named Leapfroggy Frog, a reference to Snoop Doggy Dogg, played by Kenan Thompson, alongside with his assistant Fly Girls, played by TLC.
Is it me or is it dry in here? Moisture! Coming right up, your green mist. Right there. Get a workout right here. Thank you, girls. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Then the show would reach its conclusion and then roll the credits. Would you believe that this pilot wasn't received that well? When the TV moderators brought in a group of kids to watch the pilot, they said that they liked some aspects of the show, but felt that they wouldn't like the overall product. The network was afraid that all that wouldn't succeed, so the pilot was left behind forgotten for 6 months, until Nickelodeon's president at the time, Geraldine Laybourne, saw the pilot and loved it. She exclaimed, "This show is amazing. Why haven't we picked it up?" After that, the cast and crew went back to Orlando to shoot a few more episodes, and it became an instant hit. This is a very similar fate to the pilot of Are You Afraid of the Dark, where the show wasn't picked up at first because they thought it would be too scary for kids. The pilot was sitting in a closet for months until a Nickelodeon employee found it and exclaimed, "This is good. Why aren't we doing this show?" You gotta love corporate meddling sometimes. They were so close of not including 2 shows that would later become staples of SNICK and 90s Nickelodeon nostalgia. When looking at the original pilot, it mostly plays like an episode of All That from Season 1, with the exception of the quick 30-second skits and the random celebrity cameos that shows up every time a skit would end. Yes, it's a bit rough around the edges, but it would get polished in later seasons. Also, there are plenty of skits that we would come to know on All That, such as Good Burger, Super Dude, and more, that are nowhere to be seen on the pilot, which can be very off-putting by a lot of viewers. But the one thing that makes this pilot still hold up are the cast members. From the very start, they already had great talent, varying from impressions to original characters, and portraying from serious to silly. The reason why was because the creators did a national talent search around different locations and hired the actors before writing the script. It's a very unorthodox practice since it's usually the other way around, but in this case, it worked. The writers played to the strengths of the cast members, and they would only get better and better over time. The pilot is recommended to check out, especially with the announcement of the All That reboot airing next month on June 15th. The reboot looks to be in good hands, with Keenan and Kel being the executive producers, and Josh, Kel, and Lori Beth appearing as guests in the first episode, reprising their roles of their old skits of Good Burger and Vital Information. But what other things would I personally like to see for the All That reboot? Well, that's a video topic for next time.